Welcome back to the Obvious Choice podcast. I'm back at home in my office now, which is
Yay!
wonderful. Thank you, and thank you, Amber, for that support. For no reason. And for those who don't know, I've just come back from my 12th straight winter abroad. So in total, I kind of ballparked it that I've lived in another country for in and about 1,600 days over the last 12 years. It's been 4 to 6 months every year for the last 12 years. And I started doing it because I was chasing the sunlight or whatever, right? But what I realized over the years is that why we start doing something is not why we continue doing that thing. For example, we start working out to appease our ego and we continue to better our health. With love, like the flickering of a fire, it's the light that first catches our eye, but it's the warmth that keeps us there. And with travel, I've realized that we start because we want to learn about the world, but we continue because of what the world teaches us about ourselves. 12 years is a long time to be doing this thing. I've been exploring. It started as a way to escape the Canadian winter, but what I discovered is that I really wasn't seeking year-round sun. What I was actually seeking was the contrast that living my life in two distinctly different ways throughout the year would give me. For context, I'm a guy that was brought up into a very conventional life, but I've always been curious about living. And so these last 12 years, I've spent exploring different ways to live. From caves, literal caves, to condos, to mansions, from Toronto to Thailand to Dominican Republic, everywhere in between. All on a quest to really, when I think about it, squeeze as much love and life out of my day. And what I've been trying to do is figure out a way to get excited for the mundanity of the monotony of the day-to-day. No matter what you are, no matter who you are, no matter what you do, there's going to be monotony across your day, and you can let that burn you out. You can let that, what's called, bore you out, or you can figure out a way to get really excited about that. And I've discovered that I can't maintain excitement about my day-to-day without designing into my life pretty significant contrast throughout the year. Now, this doesn't have to necessarily do with travel. And there's a lot of ways that it isn't. But my biggest problem, a lot of self-help books, a lot of books on happiness, I've read a lot of that type of stuff, are all centered around the same type of theme, which is figure out a way to be happy with less. Figure out a way to fall in love with boredom. Figure out a way to be content. Figure out a way to be contented with whatever you're doing. Something about that has never really rung true to me. Because for me, it's also great. I want to do it all. I want to build the business. I want to write the book. I want to grow the muscles. I want to have great friends. I also want to be an amazing dad. I want to be a loving husband and caring son. But at the same time, I want to take long, aimless walks on the beach. I want to dance like a fool. And I want to read as much good fiction as exists in the world and get lost in the stories. It's all so wonderful, and life is too short. And I don't want to be contented. I don't want to be happier with less. And so I've been thinking a lot about the lessons over the last 12 years that I've learned. And what's been most interesting to me is that all of them have centered around this idea of contrast. And I'd love to share some of those lessons with you. Now, this isn't a complete list. I have actually pages and pages and pages of notes on this. And there's a very good chance that this will form the framing of my next book, which is not about travel, but it's about getting excited for your day-to-day. Now, I've read a lot of the research on happiness. I've read a lot of the research on fulfillment. I've read a lot of the popular books on those topics as well. What I'm about to say is not simply summarizing the research. Um, I could do that, but you could find that elsewhere, and I'm not interested in doing it. I'm not a researcher. I consider myself more of an explorer, of somebody who spent more than a decade now literally traveling the world, um, trying to figure out the best way for me to live based off of living different ways, not accepting the ways that were kind of, oh, I don't know, thrust in front of me uh, at the time. So there's effectively three categories that I can put this in. And the way I look at this is a triangle. I mean, Amber and you guys will recognize this basic analogy because I've talked about it a bit before, but there's three competing priorities that I think about in life. And I bucket them into number one is money or work. Number two, I bucket into health, resilience, and experiences. And number three is love, family, friendship. So basically, call it like money, health, relationships. And each one is an arm of the triangle. And I like the analogy of the triangle because it's the strongest, most stable structure in the world. And if any of those arms fall off, the structure collapses. Like you need all three. And at any given time, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to increasingly strengthen and thicken one arm at a time to just improve this structure over time. But I've also discovered that I can't do it all at once. I used to think that I could do two at once. I think I've said here that I can do two at once pretty well. I don't even think that I can really do two at once that well. And I don't even really know whether I can do more than one aspect of one of them at once. And part of that has to do with what I call the grass is greener problem, which I'll talk about in a little bit. I think it's on my list here somewhere. So there's those three buckets, and I'm not going to get into specifically what falls into what bucket here today, but just to kind of tell you what I'm getting at and how I think about these things. It's those three buckets. And I think about this as an optimization exercise. It's not a figure out a way to be satisfied with less exercise. It's not a be contented exercise. It's how do you optimize the shit out of this short experience that we have with all of the magic that exists in this world. And this is not me saying that I'm perfect at all, but goddamn, I'm searching. And I've been searching for a while, and I'm going to continue to search. And I feel like I've been searching now for long enough that I've figured out some stuff that works for me, and I'm excited to share it. And I share it not preaching that this is the right thing for you. Instead, I'm sharing it just saying, hey man, I've thought about this a lot. I've gotten on a lot of planes. I've spoken to a lot of people for a lot of books, listened to a lot of sermons. I mean, literally sermons. Studied religious leaders from all different religions on topics like purpose and fulfillment. Trying to explore. Okay. So I've got 7 on my list today. I've got like 35, to be honest, of these that I'm going to explore. Some of them will probably be collapsed into one when it comes time for the book, but I'm going to share some of them. So the first is, well, I'll start the first with a story. We got back 2 nights ago to our home here in Toronto at about 7 o'clock at night. And Alice and I walked in. We've been looking forward to sleeping in our own bed for a while because, we haven't slept in our own bed for 4 months. So we've been looking forward to sleeping in our own bed. And we get upstairs. And we both kind of did the same thing. We walked into our bedroom and we looked at our bed and we were just like, why the fuck is that still there? Because we have one of those beds that has like the kind of like the princess arms, like the four posts that go up. And what Calvin did like a year ago was he took Allison's knitting yarn and he made huge spider webs that he tied across the whole thing. And right in the middle, hanging from these spider webs, is a slinky. Okay?
I love it. I wouldn't have taken it down either. It's art.
And so, first of all, there were friends staying in our place, like sleeping in that bed the last 4 months, and they've been sleeping with this thing above their head. But we got home and we looked at that thing, and we were just like, why the fuck is that still there? And so the first lesson is, sometimes contrast is good to change your autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you bet your ass I'm taking that thing down.
Just read my mind.
But that has been up for almost a year. Didn't even think about it. It was just, it's so easy to just add things into our days. And that's a stupid, inane example kind of on purpose. But it's so easy to add things into our days like that. That just becomes something that's there or something that we do. That leaving, metaphorically or physically, right? Leaving, pausing, checking out to check in, helps you see the way that you were living your life beforehand with new, fresh eyes, perhaps as some sort of an outsider. And oftentimes when you do that, you're like, well, that's dumb shit. Why is there a spider web above my bed that's been there for a year? Like, that was kind of cute when Calvin did that when he was 5. He'll be 7 in a week. Maybe that shouldn't exist anymore. So changing your autopilot is powerful. And I don't know. I don't think that you need to escape the world to do that. I think you need to just pause your existing pattern. I'm exploring it a little bit, but I've had a pullback, not necessarily to a specific religion, but to some sort of spirituality or religion or something like that. And I felt a bit of a pullback to it. I had a bar mitzvah when I was 13 years old. I grew up Jewish. I had a bar mitzvah when I was 13 years old. And I think I probably had become disinterested in religion before my bar mitzvah, certainly afterwards. But that's because growing up, you go to a synagogue, it's like it's a bunch of old white guys chanting in a language that you don't even understand. It's just not, it was nothing there for me. But part of what's pulling me back is I think first of all, there's obviously something really powerful about religion. It's the most powerful force on the planet, and it's stood the test of time. With all of the technological advances that are happening, religion is as strong or stronger than it's ever been. So clearly there's something there that serves people, that provides people something. And for me, a lot of it comes down to the embedded ethics that I don't think are necessarily associated with religion, but can be helpful. But there's also a couple practices. And one of the biggest practices that I really love is the Sabbath. Now, the Sabbath in Christianity and the Sabbath in Judaism are similar. They're just different days, right? In Judaism, it's Friday night, Saturday night. In Christianity, it's Sunday. But the Sabbath is a pause. It's a weekly pause. Now, the Sabbath, largely in Christianity, has been, because our society runs on, the Christian calendar or whatever. Not the Jewish calendar. It's like year 8,500 and something or whatever in the Jewish calendar. It doesn't run on that. Runs on the Christian calendar. And the Sabbath, Sunday used to be like a day off. Now Sunday is just a day to deal with all the shit you didn't deal with over the rest of your week, which is kind of not the purpose. But the idea with it is the Sabbath is a day to rest, to pause, to check out, to be with the people who you love. And I think that actually bringing back a practice like that into our lives, it doesn't necessarily have to be religious. Like Allison and I have been talking about this. She's obviously not Jewish. And we're just going to kind of design our own. And just, I don't know what day it'll be, Saturday or Sunday. It's just going to be a day where we're going to set our own rules. It's not going to be rules because of some ancient doctrine. It's just going to be a day for us to check out of our lives for the other 6 days of the week, where probably no phone. Like, are we going to flip on and off light switches? Like, yeah, probably. But probably no phone. It'll be a day of board games, of reading, of going for walks, bike rides, whatever. Right? And the neat thing about that is that not just the Sabbath itself or a practice like the Sabbath in helping you check out in order to then view your life almost as like an outsider again and reflect on it, which I think is a very effective way to change your autopilot. But also what that does is it forces you to be much better during the week and much more structured during the week. Because you know that you're going to have this day where you are not going to be cooking, where you're not going to be doing chores, where you're going to be with your family, so you need to make plans, or with your community, so you need to make plans. And that actually builds a structure around the rest of your week as well and makes you better for the rest of your week. So this idea of the spider webs above the bed, coming back after 4 months away, I don't actually think you need to get on an airplane and go to Mexico or Nicaragua or whatever for 4 months. I think instead, it's perhaps helpful to design a pause that allows you to check out of your life for a bit systematically in order to check back in and assess your autopilot and see whether it's the autopilot that you want to be on. That's number one. I'm happy to keep rolling, but if you guys want to pop in and anything, I mean, when did you grow up? You were the son of a pastor. Did you grow up with Sabbath or any practices like that? I've never asked you this.
Partially because, as is often the case with religion, people pick and choose what they want from it.
Sure.
So, I could do homework if I had to on my grandmother thought of it as Sunday because it's the day we went to church, and I went every Sunday with my grandmother and my mother. But like I couldn't cut the grass, right? So my grandmother would pick and choose which parts she wanted to apply to her life, which is on the one hand, it seems like it's sort of selfish. But I've come to think about religion the same way I think about training, right? Group training is available for people who want it, but the best interaction you're going to get is when it's individualized. So I sort of stay away from group think religion and try to use the foundational qualities of it for individualized connection to what I feel is the source. In my case, is God, and I just think that works better.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, yeah. Everybody can design this their own way, which I think you're getting at there too, which is pretty cool. Yeah. How do you take these rules that have obviously stood the test of time, and even research backs it up. There was a big study that came out of Sweden. Of course, it came out of Sweden about happiness, and
it's all the Swedes do.
Well, so I mean, the problem with studying happiness is kind of how do you measure it? Like from an academic research standpoint, how do you measure happiness? Like surveys are pretty fallible. So what they measured it based off of is antidepressant use. And so they looked at the rates of antidepressant use. And the first group, they gave them an extra, I think it was 4 weeks of holidays. I might have the specifics wrong. But instead of 2 weeks off over the course of a year, they gave them 6 weeks off. And what they found was that the actual rate of antidepressant use didn't change. And so the researchers concluded that an extra 4 weeks off of holiday actually did not improve to higher levels of joy, satisfaction, happiness in life.
Hmm.
But then they did a really interesting thing with the study is they didn't give them any more time off. What they did is they mandated that everybody had to take the same time off, i.e. the same time of the year. And what they found is that this had marked increases in happiness and joy. And the reasons that the researchers concluded is if you're not working, but your work is still working, you can't actually check out. You still feel connected. In addition, if you're off, but nobody you love is off, it's just, what do? You're like sitting, these people are like sitting at home by themselves, basically. Versus if you're off and everybody's off, you don't feel pressure to check into work. In addition, all of your friends and family and community and everything like that is off as well. So it's actually not total amounts of time that you're looking at. What you're looking at is shared time and the ability to actually check out. And the researchers talked about the Sabbath, talked about that, and saying this is what we believe one of the reasons why, despite everything that's happened with religion, this one aspect of it has persisted so strongly, is because it's shared time off with community. And so it's kind of like what you said there, Ren, of, hey, you can kind of pick and choose this stuff. As long as you don't have deep fundamental beliefs, I think you can kind of pick and choose this stuff. And so that's what I'm trying to do, at least. My mom actually, over the course of Passover, which actually just happened, Passover is a big Jewish holiday. Like, most people don't know this. Like, Hanukkah is like a nothing holiday in Judaism. It just happens to be around the same time as Christmas, so it's become a thing because all the sad Jewish kids then can get presents. But it's actually like Orthodox Jews like barely celebrate Hanukkah. Like, it's like a nothing thing. The high holidays are often in like September. They fall in September, or like in and around now, right? So Passover. And so Passover, what happens is you get together with your whole family and you have what's called a Passover Seder, and you read the story of basically like the Jewish Exodus. And everybody goes around the table and reads a part of the story. There's a whole bunch of other ceremonial things you do. Well, my mom a number of years ago decided that she really liked the tradition of getting together as a family. She really liked the tradition of telling these stories for the lessons that they have, but she didn't particularly like certain aspects of the Passover story because it was any combination of exceptionally misogynistic to just didn't have very good lessons. Like, two parents are fighting over a kid, so the king says, let's cut the kid in half. And then one of the parents says, no, don't cut the kid in half. I don't want half of them. I want the whole half of them. It's just like not like weird lessons like that. So what my mom actually did is she sat down and she gathered stories from a whole bunch of different religions that she felt had really good lessons. It was called didacticism. And she actually created her own Passover Haggadah, which is the book, with all of these different stories from all different religions, and created her own book. And that's what we read on Passover. And so I helped get it printed. We have a family friend who's a designer, and I helped because I, of course, know how to get books printed. I helped get a bunch of copies printed for our family and stuff. So you could do stuff like that, right? Which I think is really cool. Okay, let's move on to the next. The next one's really quick. It's just, you figure out pretty quickly when you check out of your life for even a short period of time, things that are important versus things that are urgent. And it's really, really important to do that. To say, is this the type of thing that I feel like I need to do because it's actually really important to do based off of the goals that I have for myself and my family and my business? Or does this just kind of seem urgent because it's something that's thrust in front of my face because of where I have decided to spend my time? Social media if we're thinking about social media, represents probably about 0.01% of the world that affects you and 0.000001% of the world at large. What you see on your social media feed on the platform that you decided to exist within based off of the material that you decided at one point a long time ago to engage in or to follow is not representative of everything that really matters. Not even close. Not even 1% of what matters to you. It just is in your face. And it kind of is required by us these days to step outside of that bubble and look at it as an outsider. I always think of Men in Black. You know the original Men in Black movie? Right at the end of it, there's that scene of the two aliens that are like playing with the earth and the universe as little marbles. And they're just, I was like, picture yourself as like that alien looking at your world as an outsider, almost playing with the pieces of it. And you might figure out that some of the things you do are really important. I figured out that I don't give a shit about day-to-day social media content. I just don't. And I don't think that at the end of the day, it really is going to matter. I think that day to day, I'm going to constantly feel pressure to do it and feel guilty for not doing it and feel like other people are moving faster than me or doing better than me. But then I remember that I've been in this game for 14 years. And I look at all of the people that have come and gone. And I think about the similarities between people that have gained a lot of attention in a relatively short period of time and then flamed out and they're gone and they're off doing something else, or they've left the career and they become a real estate agent or whatever they've decided to do. And the commonality amongst all of them, the most common commonality amongst all of them, is that they became obsessed with short-term tactics and they never actually built anything that mattered. And so, of course, if I put the amount of effort into, call it my tweets and networking on Instagram or Twitter or whatever today, that I've put into the Obvious Choice book, or that I put into projects like Quick Coach or the online trainer mentorship, absolutely I would have a bigger social media platform than I have right now. But so what? I'd rather be, it's the, you know what it is, Ren? It's the difference between going to somebody at a party and being like, yo, let me tell you about all of the good shit that I'm doing, versus somebody else saying to somebody else at a party, yo, you see that guy over there that's just, sitting there talking, laughing? It's like, let me tell you about all the cool shit that he's doing. Think about how much different Jamal is going to think about you.
I think about Jamal constantly, John.
I think about Jamal all the time. And I just want Jamal to like me. But all of this is so Jamal likes me. But think about the difference, when somebody finds you and somebody else is just like, yo, that dude is humble, but like, you gotta get on you gotta get on that train. Versus somebody else that's just like, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. And then you're like, okay, I'm looking at you. And they're like, where do we go from here? Can I buy you a coffee? There's kind of nothing to it. So important, not urgent. The next one I think is a really important one. I've been trying to put language to this idea, and it's the idea centers around what I call life sequencing issues, or the best term that I've gotten so far is the trap of marginal thinking. And the problem is the when I have problem. When I have more money, I will become philanthropic. When I have more time, I will start exercising. When I have more time, I will be a better friend, husband, lover, whatever. That's not how this shit works. Because things like time and money aren't change agents, they're amplifiers. If you are not charitable, if you're not philanthropic, you will not magically become philanthropic once you earn a lot of money. If you are a nice person, if you're a generous person, if you're a caring person, when you have more time, you will become a nicer, more generous, more caring person. If you are a greedy, jealous asshole, you will become a greedier, more jealous, bigger asshole when you have more money. The sequencing issue is thinking that you have to accomplish something before you can become someone.
Mm-hmm.
You need to become that person now. That's how you earn the right to become a greater version of that person. Being charitable, being philanthropic is not about necessarily donating the largest amount of money. Think about what you can give now. Think about how you can support and serve people now. And it's the same with just being a kind person or exercising or whatever. You might not be able to do as much as you would like to do now. That's fine. But nothing is going to magically change once you get to some stage. And so a question that I always like to ask people on this, and we asked it on our podcast a couple weeks ago, I think it was. I don't know, it was a number of episodes, Amber. Question that I like to pose to people. I think I asked actually at Andrew Coates' event in Edmonton. I had dinner with a bunch of online trainer mentorship students and coaches, and it was an awesome dinner. And I asked everybody the same question. And I asked it on this podcast, and Alice and I ask it all together. I think it's a really powerful question, which is, if you had Bezos' level of wealth, if you had Bezos' money, basically unlimited money, what would you do different than what you're doing today? And the reason that I love this question is because the answers that just about everybody gives are very often within their reach right now. Maybe not completely, but some aspect of it is often within their reach right now. And so that's a really good question to get out of this this sequencing issue, this trap of marginal thinking, is play in a different part of your brain. Think, if I had unlimited amounts of money, what would I do different than what I'm doing right now? Dream. Dream as big as you could possibly dream. And then you look at what's written down on that piece of paper, you think about that conversation that you're having with a loved one as you're posing this question to them. And you're just like, oh, we could do that today. Well, that's pretty cool. It's a pretty quick, easy way to improve the quality of your life. Anything on that before I get to the next?
Yeah, I think people misunderstand the fact that capacity is not a prerequisite for identity. And that's where they sort of get caught off guard. Capacity better reflects the actionable leg of your identity, but it's not a prerequisite. Like, you got $5, you can give 50 cents, right? If your identity is to give, the capacity of what you have available to give doesn't predetermine what the identity is. But as the capacity increases, it should also reflect an increase in how you live through your identity. And we see this all the time with people exercising, right? If I can lose weight, I'll start to eat healthier. If I get in
Yeah.
better shape, I'll start working out regularly. And they just don't even realize that the cart's in front of the horse in those statements, right? You lose weight because you decide that you're the type of person that endeavors into health-based behaviors. A lot of people are just waiting. That's all I
What's
got to
that
say.
famous? It's either a Munger or a Buffettism. It's one of those two. But um, their famous line is everybody says like, "Oh, I need to, get a great spouse," and it's like, no, 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 no. You need to become the type of person who will
Yes,
attract a great spouse.
yes, 100%.
So do those calf raises, Jamal. Allison
That
always laughs at me
Jamal.
because the only thing that I ever comment on other dudes are their calves. She's like, whoa, man.
Same.
I was just like, dude, look at that guy's calves. She's like, what is with you and other guys' calves? I was like, it's just.
But you have calves, John.
She's like, I don't
have
care.
any.
She's like, I don't care about calves. Like, I don't think like girls don't like care about calves. I'm like, no, no, no. The calf is what makes the man.
Oh my god, it's true though.
So
Seriously,
here's my
exactly
assessment of the Buffettism. You must become the type of man who has the type of calves to attract a great woman.
I'm going to tell you, quite frankly, John, that's absolute nonsense. That there's no logic to what you just said, but it makes sense.
Well, if you don't like it, Len, you know what I say. Get your own goddamn
No.
podcast.
Oh, I love it here.
Okay, you can stay. The next one is, this came from, I think, a line that I heard. Do you remember Ido Portal? He was a movement specialist. He was a big deal like years ago, an Israeli guy.
No.
He was huge like 10 years ago. He became really, really big. And then, I mean, he's still around, but I think he's kind of like an underground name. He was Conor McGregor's like movement coach,
Okay.
all of the stuff like that. I don't know if that happened before or after he kind of built a name for himself. Anyway, one of the things that he said was, you must become tolerant to your intolerances. The goal of movement, the goal of exercise, is to become tolerant to your intolerances. And I've never forgotten that line. And I've always questioned why that line did not catch on much more than it did. Because I actually think that that is a phenomenal life lesson. You're going to roll your ankle. Physically and metaphorically. You're going to roll your ankle. Person A is going to roll their ankle. And they're going to look around. And they're going to feel a little bit silly. And then they're just going to go on with their day. Person B is going to roll their ankle. And they're going to be on crutches. The difference between person A and person B is person A is proactively become tolerant to their intolerances. They built up the resilience, the physical resilience, to know that, shit's gonna happen. You're gonna get sick. You're gonna get injured. Every single one of us has cancer cells within our body. Every single one of us. We're going to have bad things that are going to happen to people that we love. We're going to have people who are going to treat us unfairly in our business practices. There's going to be bad shit that's going to happen in life. The difference is some people build resilience in advance, build tolerance to those things, and some people don't. And so I think one of the most important keys to living a great life is in advance to unknown intolerances, you build strength. And that's physical strength, which is something I think we can all nod our heads to. But I think that's also mental resilience. I think that's filling your head with positivity. I think that is being sure not to surround yourself with really negative people and negative things. Going out of your way to seek out much more positive communities. I also think it's like in the gym. I mean, you build tolerance in a controlled environment, reasonably controlled environment, doing progressively more difficult things over time, stretching your comfort zone. I look at exploration the same way. I look at travel the same way. You don't need to go to a different, you don't need to get on an airplane to do it. Perhaps going to a different part of town, though. Going to a different coffee shop, forcing yourself to say hello to somebody. There's a lot of ways to do that. Hi, Calvin.
Mommy insists that you have to walk inside.
Oh, okay. Can you tell Mommy that I'm doing my podcast and I'll be inside in 15 minutes?
No, because I'm leaving.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll go.
Okay, tell her I'll be 5 minutes then. Okay?
5?
Okay.
We're good for 20 minutes because we're going to Costco.
Okay, sounds
The
good.
best shot of the show.
Okay, tell her I'll come back in 5 minutes, okay?
5?
Yeah.
4.
4 minutes, okay,
Okay.
deal.
The art of negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
The best ever.
So I guess I've only got 4 minutes. So why don't we make this a 2-part episode, guys?
You're damn right you got 4 minutes. That's awesome.
Okay, well, so,
The way his brain works, man, it's awesome. Like how the thought pattern, and it's just awesome.
so we're going to continue this in the next episode. For now, if you're looking for something else to listen to, I'm going to recommend you check out episode 207, which is managing outside disruptions to your business.
How perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Psychic.
Okay? Well,
Brought that into existence.
Well played, John. Well played, sir.
y'all take care of yourselves.